Good evening. I'm Melvin Mariner, Senior Pastor here at Grove Church. I want to welcome you to Tough Table Talks, and we do this on the first and third Tuesday of each month. So we've been doing this really conversation about the modern family. We're dealing with the blended family. We've been dealing with the interracial families in another couple of weeks. And so thank you for watching us tonight. Definitely want to thank our sponsor for believing in this conversation. Charlene Mooring Law Firm. I just want to thank her just for believing in what we're doing and creating a situation where we are engaging in critical conversation. So today, I'm happy to have, let me first of all say that they represent the best of America. Thank you both for your service to our country and to the kingdom of God, because you have this dual responsibility. Really, you both wear three hats. You're involved in ministry, you love God, you have family, and then you serve our country. And so those are some major pieces. And I wonder, how do you keep it together? But first of all, just introduce yourselves and tell us something about your military life that you want the audience to hear.
Kim Bradley, been in the Navy it'll be 22 years this July. And I think one of the most interesting things, I've been to over 40 countries. So they've given me a really good world perspective and view just about life. And I came into my maturation in adulthood living overseas between Japan and Italy. So that's just one of the highlights of being in the military. So that's one thing about myself.
40 countries in 20 some years in the military.
Yes.
Okay, it pays to travel. I mean, that is an amazing moment, yes.
Yes.
And I'm Melody Bradley. I am been his dependent for 10 years, and then I convinced him to let me come in. So I'm in the military and have been in for almost 10 years this month.
Almost this month. So you convinced him to allow, not Uncle Sam, you convinced him to let you come into the military. And so basically on the rank, so you've been serving together in the military. And how long you been married?
20 years in December.
Okay, make sure he says December,
20
because I think she marks a full year in December.
Yes.
So you're on your way to the 20th
Right.
year.
She don't count it until we get there.
Until you get there.
Right.
Okay. And so that's amazing. So military life, for many of us, we live here in Hampton Roads, and we know that we have one of the largest military bases in the country. And so looking at that and looking at how long you both have served, 10 years, 22 years, and you still have some more years to give Uncle Sam the Navy until you're able to retire. What has been one of the greatest assets of you two serving in the military as it relates to a couple?
I would say the education piece. They really promote education and even supporting causing us to do things for ourselves that they really, I'm not sure if that was promoted years ago, but it is very much so promoted, so that you can have a life outside of the military, whether you retire or whether you stay in for your amount of time that you obligated yourself for.
So you enjoy the benefits of knowing that I can get a degree or at least educate myself more formally while in the military on the government's dime.
Yeah, and to that point, also for setting up for dependents, one of the motivating factors for her coming in was they now allow us to give our educational benefits to our kids. So while we go to school and we don't have to pay a penny. So if we leave out with master's degrees or doctorates, whatever, when we get out, there's still educational funding for us. We've both given that to our kids. So our kids' college are paid for. So that's part of the sacrifice of what we do and looking bigger picture. So there's a lot of sacrifice with travel and et cetera. But I think nowadays they really consider the family, because the family also makes sacrifice.
So what do you look at as far as one of the great assets of being involved?
A point of continuity for me. I would like to say it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. So being there for 20 plus years, it doesn't mean the Navy is my identity of who I am as a person. But having that security and consistency and being able to provide for my family while still exploring myself, my educational future, and what I would like to do post-Navy, because I still have a lot of time. And it gives me that comfort and ability to be able to do that. So when I retire, I not only have the educational backing, the security clearances, I not only have different certifications, but I've been able to really pinpoint who I want to be when I get out. And the Navy has provided that ability to give my family a certain lifestyle in order to explore myself. And so that's where I kind of find just one of the greatest assets. Like, no matter what, I have a very secure job while I discover myself and my manhood and my personal growth.
Wow, I like that part, because a lot of people, either whether you're in the military or out, they don't ever get to a place where they really want to understand themselves. Most of us, our careers, our jobs have become our personality.
Yes.
So to hear both of you say that's one of the strengths that I'm hearing from you all, to say that you both have learned, and Ken, you have learned that the Navy doesn't give you your identity. You're still engaging in something larger. Does it? How strange is it to be an enlisted individual and an officer and be married?
It's not strange for us only because I started out enlisted. So I was 15 years enlisted. I was a chief as well, and I put in for commission. So there's a lot of relatability there. I think it's only weird for people outside of our household and construct.
Yes.
And she's so professional, like even in email, she's, oh, sir, lieutenant, like, I'm like, this is me. I'll be home at 5. Stop talking to me like that. But she's way more professional than I am, right? But it's not strange. I think nowadays, because of the commissioning programs that they have in the military, you see that actually a lot more, where you have these military couples and one person, gets a commission, the other person doesn't, or decides to stay enlisted, or just doesn't get picked up, and those dynamics exist. And so they kind of have, the unwritten kind of codes and things. So even when she comes around to my command and she's around all officers, she's typically in civilian clothes. They're calling her by first name. They put the rank aside. This is Mrs. Bradley, and we're calling her Melody, and that's that. So they don't even see her as, oh, she's an enlisted person, she's a lower ranking. They don't look at that. Okay. So they're really considerate of just different family dynamics in today's Navy.
Okay. I'm about ready to kind of pick your brains a little bit.
Let's go.
Because the modern family, from a military perspective, having to travel. Now, he's been in longer. You were his dependent for 10 years. Yes. Did you travel a lot with him, or were you stationary? And most times we don't look at dependents and understand their sacrifices as one who serves actively in the military travels. And so how did it feel prior to as a dependent? Because now you have two lenses to look from, as a dependent and then now as an active military wife as well. How did it feel? And did you travel a lot with him?
I did. Okay. Everywhere he was stationed, then I was with him.
Okay.
So from the beginning, actually. He had been in for a year and a half before we got married. So
okay.
So Japan, Italy, and then back to the States, I was with him. So
you're with him. So really there was no real gap in your family structure, because
oh, there was one.
There was one?
Yes.
Okay.
Besides deployments, when we going out to sea, we knew that we had to incur the possibility of us being separated with me accepting a commission, right? So that happened not too long ago, where they put me in Washington State and my wife and kids were in San Diego. And they kept us away from each other for 3 years. And that hit us hard.
3 years total, but 3 years, but I'm an exact person. It ended up being a 5.5-year stint, because it also was when I first came into the Navy. So he was doing workups for deployment, and then a deployment, which had us away from each other for a year, even before his commission.
And our kids went and stayed with family between Oklahoma City and Chicago. So we were kind of split up and moving around for about almost like upwards of 5 years. And then when we came to Virginia, it was our first time coming back together. And we were in shambles.
Yeah. Okay. It was very much so a transition period for us.
What created the shambles or transition, the challenge? What was the challenge in your marriage, being in the military, as it relates to being a part of the military life? What was some of the challenges there?
Being a mom, at the time I was newly coming into the military, so fully mom, and now needing to be fully dad because I had the children. And then, and the day in and day out, the the ups and downs of just cares of life that happens that I had to carry. And it was a weight, but then also needing to uphold what I stood up and said I was going to do, so that it was a juggling act for me. And just trying to balance it all was very much so a struggle. And then I don't think I articulated that well to Kenny. I don't think because sometimes it would just say, I would say, I miss you over the phone. I miss you. I said a lot of I miss yous, I remember. But that didn't articulate what I was going through, what I was enduring, even at work and at home, and yet trying to make the boys understand, or I think I did a good job of helping them to understand why Dad, and he did also, why Dad was gone, but keeping the morale in the house, so keeping them having a life and enjoying life, yet the sacrifice, knowing that it is a sacrifice, and acknowledging that to them and for them, and allowing them the space to talk about those things, but yet kind of for my own self, I don't think I articulated it well what I needed from Kenny at the time.
Was it deliberate, or were you trying to save him, protect him from something? Or why did you feel that you couldn't articulate how you felt to your husband who was deployed?
It might have been a little of both, of intentional, just not doing that, and sometimes thinking that he wouldn't understand because he was so used to being, I would sometimes talk to him about, you're used to being the one that leaves, and I'm used to being left. Well, it's a different dynamic with now being a military member as well, and it just created different feelings and different things in me that I don't think through counseling, actually, I was able to really get that out, and then be able to eventually talk to him about that.
So as wonderful as the military is,
Mm-hmm.
you used the word that you felt as though you were being left.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you reconcile his responsibilities with your feelings of being left? And having two young males in the household,
Mm-hmm.
but you still knew that he was doing what he had to do as far
Mm-hmm.
as his responsibilities, his duties,
Mm-hmm.
but you still felt left. So could you have done anything differently, or could he have done anything differently to make you feel not that abandonment, or I'm being left?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if that could be, because in my mind, that's just the fact. When the person that is deploying or being stationed in another place, then that's what it is. The person that stayed, especially if we were at one point located together and then I had to stay, you get to leave and I have to stay. There's no option in that.
Right.
But I see what you mean. My thoughts about it.
Yes.
The feeling of abandonment. I don't know. I understood it, but I had to say, okay. As I reassured my boys, before reassuring them, I would reassure myself. This is for a cause. We agreed to this. We talked about this. I would have to go over those things with myself, so that I could say, hey, wait, he didn't do this on purpose. He didn't leave you. It's not he left by choice, or it's not on purpose. It's because you both talked about this, and this is what we're doing. This is a part of the sacrifice of a military family.
Okay. Was it greater sacrifice for as a military family, or just as a marriage itself? I mean, what was the sacrifice? Was it just because of military? Were you trying to build something else as it relates to your family structure?
Yeah. So looking at family vision and when we forecast it, what we want to do for our next generation, considering how we came up, what does successful parenting look like, and what we want to set our kids up, and what do we see ourselves down the line? With me accepting the jobs and the promotions that I took call for sacrifice, which ultimately affected the family greater, right? So even the dynamic of me leaving, because deployment is one thing. You go out 9, 10 months, you hit in cities, you come back. They stationed me in Washington State for 3 years. So now I had the guilt of just living in a different city for my family. So the first part of that was, I'm just gonna be a recluse because I feel guilty that I left my wife and kids. I'm not gonna do anything. I don't wanna have fun. I don't wanna seem like I'm enjoying this, which caused secondary and tertiary effects, right? I have to live, right? I have to have friends. I have to start a life, which in essence is me starting this life as a single man up there. Because I don't have the responsibility of all of that. The other part is being operationally focused. So I was on call to do some very serious jobs and tasks where I have to be focused. So there's a part of me that has to go, this family dynamic exists. It's hard. I miss them. I feel bad that I'm away, but I can't dwell there. Otherwise, I'm not going to be sharp operationally, and people's lives are at stake there. So I know she also felt the lack of me leaning in, which is a term that we're kind of come to really embrace, the lack of leaning in towards hers and the boys. But then when I did come home to visit, there's a constant assimilation that has to take place.
Okay.
So now they've established a family and a house culture, and now dad is basically a visitor.
Okay.
I'm coming home for 3-4 days in a while. What systems do y'all have in place? I'm just gonna fall in line and exist for a little bit, and I'm gonna ride out. I'm gonna come home and be a little bit of a disciplinarian and love my wife a little bit, and I'm gonna ride out. Not to disrupt what has been established. So there's so many dynamics, right? But one thing I find as a blessing is the intentionality behind mental health. Even when we got out here, having the boys see a therapist, her seeing one, I'm seeing one, we're seeing one, because that is very important, because there's things that go against the construct of marriage and family that we have allowed ourselves to exist in. And so in order for this to work, like, God has to be the central thrust of what we do and why we do it, but then also just that mental health aspect. And it still left us in shambles, gave us a journey in order to transition. But right now, I think because of everything that we went through, like, we're closer now and a tighter family than we've ever been.
Your comment about operationally and practically are the things that perhaps most service individuals want to hear about. How do you juggle both and understand that the maintenance and survival of your household may not have anything to do with operational things?
There's a term that I learned upwards of a decade ago called boots off, shoes off.
Okay.
Right.
Explain boots off, shoes off, because for some people, boots off, shoes off means intimacy, and so and that's okay too.
That too.
That's okay too. There's nothing wrong with intimacy, but boots off, shoes off. So I guess that there's a deeper meaning. So let's go.
Right. So you really have to become divisive, like, mentally. You have to divide. I don't think there's a such thing as like a balance. There's not a balance. You're choosing to be all in here or all in there. So either I take my boots off and I got my shoes on and I'm at home and I'm fully dad and husband. And there's a transition. My wife knows it. So even when I'm all in at work and I got my boots on and my uniform on, I am fully present. On my drive home, that's my transition. When I take my boots off, I take Navy off fully. And if it's not fully off, I'm going to my bedroom, I'm cutting a fan on, and I'm laying down for about 30 minutes until I get that off of me, so I can fully be husband, fully be dad. Boots off, shoes off. Now, when I show up to work, I may have problems at home. The kids may, whatever. But when I walk to that front door of my building, the shoes are off, the boots are on, and now I'm fully lieutenant. So boots off, shoes off, mental gymnastics to fully be where you are. And that's how it is, right? So there's been times where I haven't fully taken it off, and it's a whole lieutenant walking around the house, barking out orders every day. Everybody getting in shape. What are we doing? What's this? Nah, I gotta all that off.
And your response to those days when he wears the
It's
boots,
blended.
She's so sweet.
those days that he has the boots on in the house, and you feel, that I'm missing something. My husband is
Right.
still left out there somewhere. Come on home because I need my husband and the father of these children. So, has the military helped you transition to understand the difficult challenge of boots off, shoes on, however the terminology was? I mean, has that helped you at all due to the military, or has he helped you and counseling helped you to understand, not so much the military, you being involved in the military?
He has helped me. I think long before I came into the military, that he had his, now years ago, it was, I need 15, 20 minutes. Right in the beginning, then that's what it was. It was 15, 20 minutes. And
Now it's 30.
right now.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
It's a longer time. But so he would tell me, and sometimes he would come home and he would tell me just things that he could share. That's actually what made me start like, ooh, I would talk to him about wanting to come in. And he would be like, no, one of us is enough. One of us is enough. But he would take that, share a little bit, need that divide. Now you asked me, what do I do when I get the blended? Then I'm just like waiting, or I'll have to say something, conduct myself as, okay, he just needing a little more time. Because then he'll come to and say, I was so-and-so. I was in the military still, wasn't I? Yep. When I shared all that, when I said all that. Okay, well, let's sit down and talk about this. What do you have to say about it? When I know that he wants my input and not just speaking order, then I'm like, okay, I got Kenny back.
So being engaged, being a part of that operational part, and even though he's taking his boots off, it makes you feel now that he didn't just bring it home, that I'm actually a part of what he's a part of. My biggest challenge has been gaining a community and making sure that the community that I had was for our family. Just making sure that we were tapped in, and that he was, although he wasn't there, and even here, we have a community of people that we trust, but ensuring when he wasn't with me that he had a say in who was our community for me and for our boys and for us as a family. That has been the biggest challenge for me in the military, balancing military life and being all in there, along with still being a mom, still being a wife for him. So do you see do you have more close friends in the military, or you have it's kind of blended? Do you find do you find differences with those friends in the military versus those not, as
Big
far
ones.
as?
Yes.
Huge differences. It's like time is never lost. The level of intentionality of like covenant friendship is beyond anything, because when we're overseas, really all you have is each other. And it was crazy. One of the weird dynamics that we experienced that actually made us get mad at our actual friends and family is because we would go great lengths to be around our military friends. We would travel, we don't care. And we understood that we would do that for family as well. If we're stationed in Italy, we're gonna fly back to the States and we're gonna come see y'all, right? But when we got stationed in the States, some people wouldn't drive 20 miles to see us because it's too far of a drive. But we also have military friends that are flying from California to Virginia just to spend a day with us, 2 days. Because that level of I need to come see you and be in your space. So when she talks about community, one of the linear things that have existed in our life as military family is establishing communities where we go. Being in Virginia is the first time the Navy has allowed us to be someplace back to back. Besides that, for the last 2 years, every 3 years, we've been somewhere different geographically, and more often than not, drastic shifts to where we are. So we go somewhere, we establish a new community, we begin to exist. Because with that community, she's at work, I'm here, we need somebody to take the boys here, we need somebody to do this, we need somebody to do that. and we can trust them, and the boys trust them, and we gain more friends that way. That friendship, it is beyond something that I could actually understand. You know what I mean? Like, it is very intentional, very deep rooted. I had a friend visit that I've known for over 20 years. Cortez comes up, I'm just gonna come up and see you, man. Just I just want to put eyes on you, man. But we couldn't even get that from like family or people that we grew up with, say as friends.
Or we had to communicate that so that they could understand
that
and then make their decision if they still want to be in our lives or not.
Wow.
And give them the space to do that.
What were your closing words for military families or for those who are interested in a career? And you've given me 4 reasons why all of us should enlist, or most of us should enlist. But again, I'm just hearing too many negatives. So what would be?
That was it. I would say don't believe the hype. Right? There's negative hype that comes with it. So military is this, military is that. Military families don't last. Military marriage is this. You have the ability to decide what's going on with you in your life and what's happening in your household and who you're surrendering to, what you're yielding to. We're not that family. We're not that couple. So if you allow, just like I said, the Navy did not consume my character and who I am as a person. You don't have to allow what people say or whatever statistics out there. That doesn't have to be you. So take ownership of that, right? Watch what you manifest. Watch what you speak over your life. Watch what you accept. Me and my wife's first 8-9 years we had an 8-9 year honeymoon.
Okay, 8-9 year honeymoon. That's a whole different story.
When I tell you, flat-footed right here, we didn't have a single argument or a single problem in 8 or 9 years. And people say, y'all gonna argue, don't speak that over our life.
Okay.
It was a fairy tale for like 8 or 9 years. Then we hit issues, right? But 8 or 9 years of that. But we had this fortified stance as a family to say, nah, we're not gonna believe that hype. We're not gonna let you speak that to us. And we would say it right there on the spot. We don't accept that. Don't speak that to us. So military families, you can make it. Military couples, marriages, you can be amazing. Yes, there is that. So you make that decision coupled with, and if you're a believer in Christ, what God says about you is the only thing that matters, right? So that's what I would say.
Okay. Last words?
I would say be intentional about your covenant, your relationship with one another, not assuming things about each other, because we change. We're people. We change. But also be intentional and appreciate your community. Be intentional about who you have as community. Those are my last words.
Well, listen, I want to thank you both, Ken and Melanie, for just sharing. I'm thankful that in how you concluded that don't believe the hype. Try things for yourself. Investigate. Talk to someone who's experienced those things like both of you all. And I'm very thankful that as positive as your careers are, and your family dynamics is getting stronger, and you two are loving each other and respecting each other much more than when you first met. That's growth. And I really want our audience and listeners to really engage in family. You may have children who are looking for opportunities. Military family is a strong family. And the things that I'm hearing today is they are intentional about their covenant. They're deliberate about that we're going to pursue our goals and deal with those issues that are apparent in every category of life. You are our positive examples of how things can be. And so continue to work toward your perfection. Continue to love and forgive each other, and continue to serve our country as long as you can, because we are being blessed by that. Thank you for listening. Peace, love, and power.